Audiences have always had a big appetite for dramatizations of famous lives. A popular character gets you a part actors want to play and a story everybody wants to see. As an artistic director, it's my job to consider the kind of heroes I put on stage. From biopics to Shakespeare plays, it's something we're all thinking about. In my edition of Artsnight, I'll be talking to actors, writers and directors about the real lives they're choosing to show, and asking them if they feel any responsibility to the people they've chosen to represent. I also want to know, how does that reflect our contemporary culture? In 2015, our screen heroes are increasingly drawn from real life, not from fiction. If you want to get ahead in the Oscar race, it's smart to play a real person in a biopic. I spoke to leading practitioners of the form, including Erin Sorkin, the screenwriter, and Tom Hiddleston about the pleasures and pitfalls of playing for real. Cinemagoers are being offered an array of films exploring a truly diverse range of real-life stories. Whether it's Steve Jobs, Lance Armstrong, the Suffragettes, or Hank Williams.
It does feel there is an increasing proliferation of real stories in cinema. And maybe that's something to do with the fact that we live in a world where everything's being documented.
I think that humans are, by nature, voyeuristic. We want to peek in the window of our neighbor and see what kind of things they do in the privacy of their own home.
People enjoy relating to these people as human beings as opposed to two-dimensional figures who are far away.
When did this modern cinematic obsession with real lives begin? One of the classics of the genre, directed by Steven Soderbergh, dramatized the life of an unknown paralegal secretary, whose name was even the title. The film follows Erin and lawyer Ed Masry, played by Albert Finney, as they help a small US town, Hinckley, take on a giant corporation. The story caught the imagination of millions and brought Julia Roberts an Oscar.
With a little effort, I really think we can just nail their asses to the wall.
Oh, you do? With all your legal expertise, you believe that?
Don't you ever just know?
You also just know where the money's coming from. That's why most of these cases settle lack of money. You know what toxicologists and geology experts cost? We're looking at $100 grand a month easy. I've already made a huge dent in my savings.
We'll figure it out. I admit, I don't know shit about shit, but I know the difference between right and wrong. Lover's quarrel? Oh, bite my ass, Krispy Kreme.
The real Erin Brockovich now tours the world, campaigning and giving motivational speeches. But I was really curious to know just what impact this seminal film had on her life.
The movie was overwhelming. The movie shocked me. You know, I'm still shocked. I was like, I had no idea. It wasn't until somebody said to me, what are they going to name the movie, Erin? And I was like, well, I don't know. The working title is Erin Brockovich. They go, well, that's stupid. Nobody's going to call a movie Erin Brockovich. I'm like, yeah, I agree. They're like, go ask Steven. So when I asked Steven, I said, what's the name of the film? He goes, duh, Erin Brockovich. And I'm like, why? And he goes, Erin, we don't need to see another movie about a lawyer. Do you just understand what's going on here? I mean, you're running around in miniskirts and stilettos, picking up dead frogs, trying to help these people who have been poisoned, and you're a single mom. He goes, people understand that.
So a friend of mine this week, he wrote on Twitter that he was annoyed with his car company and that he was going to do an Erin Brockovich.
I wish I had a penny for every time that happened.
How do you feel now that your name's become a verb and an adjective?
You can't separate Erin Brockovich from Erin Brockovich. They're one and the same. It's so weird. Is that so weird that I had to just say that?
So there's this figure in people's heads who is this character who is one Erin Brockovich, who is played by Julia Roberts in this movie. And I suppose, how does that woman travel with you, like into different spaces?
In comedy. She travels with me in comedy. The things that people say to me because of the movie and the association is truly hysterical. I mean, you know, my running joke is, hi, I'm Erin Brockovich, not Julia Roberts. Haha. Because, you know, there's such confusion. Even today, I'll be in a grocery store line, and they're like, oh, Erin Brockovich, name of a film. And I'm like, well, it was the name of a film, and there's a real person, I'm it. And they're like, yeah, right. That was Julia. I'm like, no, Julia played my person. I'm the Erin Brockovich. It's like, no, that was the name of a movie. I mean, they don't make that connection.
Do you think the movie delayed your understanding your role in it, or do you think it sped it up in some way?
Delayed it.
Yeah.
Because I got too overwhelmed. I remember the night of the movie premiere. I'll never forget it. And I was literally panic-stricken coming up to the event. And my car pulled up, and I saw Stephen coming. You know, there's a red carpet here and a red carpet here, and I can see all the lights and activity over there. And I get out of the car, and there's a lot of ruckus over there. And I was like, oh, what? Oh, what if it's a flop? Oh no. I mean, so I had this moment of total panic. The night the film came out, some of the agents and stuff, my friends came over to the house, and we all went to the movie theater together. We couldn't get in the movie theater anywhere. Sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. So that's a good sign. So I think just because it was so, I had to detach. And it's taken this process and all these years to kind of really get where I'm at, to see what it ultimately feels like.
Because I was thinking, when a movie is so famous that then you put the real in front of your actual...
Oh, no, I'm changing my name to The.
Are you?
Yes, I am. No, because this is truly what it is. You're The Erin Brockovich. So, yeah, you can call me The. Honestly, we've talked about that before, how funny I should be called. Hi, my name's The.
I want you to know something, Ed. It is not about the number. It is about the way my work is valued in this firm. It's about how no matter what I do, you're not...
As I was saying, I decided that the figure you proposed was inappropriate, so I increased it.
It was very overwhelming, that bonus that he gave me. It was a true act of love and respect and appreciation. So if I watch it, I'm going to tear up like I am now, because it will...
Because it's a memorial as well as a monument now, isn't it?
It was really spectacular, very strange. So yeah, so you shouldn't ask me that question.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you sad.
Now I know why I'm not watching it, because I'm gonna get all sad.
So you have a part in the movie. You have a kind of grace note appearance. Is that right?
I was a waitress.
Yeah. Was that fun to do, or did it feel weird?
No, it was weird. I didn't want to do it. I had an experience that day. That's the first time I saw Julia on set.
Okay, that's the first time you saw her as a day that you went to do your small
That's
part.
right.
Okay.
And so I was in a trailer getting hair and makeup ready, so they say, and she came in the side door. Well, apparently she wasn't supposed to be talking to me, so she's like, ooh, and went into another room when she saw me. And I'm thinking to myself, that's kind of rude. She's not talking to me. So I heard her on the phone. She came out, she came behind me. So I looked up this way, and she stopped and looked at me, and she goes, hi, I'm Julia. It was obvious she felt odd, and I was like, hi, I'm Erin. And she goes, I'm so embarrassed. I don't even have my boobs in yet. I mean, it completely broke the ice. And I was like, oh my God, I like you. I mean, so, but off she went. It was an awkward moment, but she brought laughter to it.
Erin worked closely with the director on her celluloid portrayal, but some recent biopics have been more controversial in their treatment of real lives. Aaron Sorkin, who wrote the new Steve Jobs film, believes creative freedom is vital when writing biographical screenplays.
You can't write code. You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen from Xerox PARC. Jeff Raskin was the leader of the Mac team before you threw him off his own project. Everything, someone else designed the box. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
I play the orchestra.
Many journalists have taken on, have done their own version of a biopic, including Walter Isaacson, who wrote the book that this movie is based on. The movie announces itself pretty early on as a painting and not a photograph, not a piece of journalism, but a subjective, artistic take on one particular aspect of the life of Steve Jobs. I think that if you lined up 10 screenwriters and asked each one to write a movie about Steve Jobs, you would get 10 very different movies, even among those writers who did choose to do a literal version of the Steve Jobs story.
Sorkin's approach has sometimes left his subjects unhappy. Mark Zuckerberg, the hero of the social network, rejected the film, stating, "This is my life, so I know it's not so dramatic."
I thought that was a perfectly understandable response. You know, I don't think any of us would like to have a movie made out of the things that we did when we were 19 years old. Also, he's right. In that our lives aren't the same as movies, and the properties of people and the properties of characters don't have anything to do with each other. People don't speak in dialogue, and people's lives don't lay themselves out in a series of scenes that form a narrative. That's something that a writer does to a story.
You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices of Facebook, where my colleagues and I are doing things that no one in this room, including and especially your clients, are intellectually or creatively capable of doing. Did I adequately answer your condescending question?
If you put cameras and tape recorders in anyone's workplace, it would be a god-awful bore. It wouldn't be a movie. You need someone to come along and shape that, find some kind of truth in that.
It seems that the line between fact and fiction is increasingly blurred. James Marsh's Oscar-winning documentary Man on Wire about French tightrope walker Philippe Petit was recently turned into a Hollywood blockbuster.
As stories, they come to you as documentaries because they appear to be so beyond the realms of believability. If you were to present them as fiction, no one would buy into them. And my sort of rule is, if a story feels utterly incredible and unbelievable, then a documentary is probably the best way of doing it. And if a story feels a little bit more manageable into reality, then maybe a drama is a better way of approaching it.
Marsh has made the shift into biographical drama with The Theory of Everything, the story of Stephen and Jane Hawking. Why didn't he make it as a documentary?
Well, I think a documentary couldn't get you to where the drama could get you, which was to the intimacies of a marriage. So in the case of Stephen Hawking and Jane Hawking, you know, there's many kinds of films you can make about Stephen's life and Jane's life. Unless I was filming the marriage for 25 years or 20 years, I couldn't really have had the same access to the emotional life of the characters that you could do through a dramatic script. I'm not qualified to say what is more true and what isn't true. All I know is that in both documentaries and films I've made, feature films I've made based on true stories, you're looking for something that to you has the smack of truth about it. Now, neither of those media or mediums of filmmaking are the literal truth.
How does an actor make the stretch into playing a real-life character, especially when their experience is far from their own? British actor Tom Hiddleston recently transformed into American country singer Hank Williams. I wanted to hear what it took for him to make this leap into another's life. So, you've taken on this icon, this hero, this massive figure in American cultural history. How deep was the breath that you drew before doing that?
Just, I mean, it's giant. It was terrifying. It was daunting. It was challenging. But exciting, because Hank Williams changed the landscape of American music. He inspired so many. Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, Johnny Cash, Bruce Springsteen, all tipped their hat to Hank.
To hide his face and cry.
Basically, he was born with spina bifida, which wasn't diagnosed till he was about 27. But he was apparently quite a weak child, and he wasn't strong. And which is why he missed the draft, so he wasn't a soldier himself. And he also didn't work. He didn't work on the railroad, he didn't work in the field, he didn't work on the farm, which is, I think, part of the reason why he latched onto music and why he latched onto the guitar, because that's what he could do.
How did you begin to get into this music, which is not your music?
No, that was the hardest thing, I think, was trying to change my instinctive rhythm. Our British rhythm is actually very on the beat. It's very neat, it's very tidy, it's very British.
So how do you unstitch that?
You unstitch it by going to Nashville for 6 weeks before you start shooting.
She changed the lock on our front door, and my door key don't fit no more, so get it on over.
I went to train with a man. He's actually Nashville royalty, and he's called Rodney Crowell. He himself saw Hank Williams play on his father's shoulders at the age of 2, and it's one of his earliest memories. And Hank is the biggest inspiration in his life. The thing that he instructed me to do from the get-go was to interpret the material, which is really just like playing a Shakespearean role. He said, there's no way you can imitate Hank. Hank was the only Hank, but the way that you'll carry it across, and he used these words, he said, if you can sing with the same level of authenticity, sincerity, and feeling, and show us what that means to you, we'll hear it. We'll hear what Hank was trying to say, because that's the power he had, is that it came from his heart.
Hank wouldn't be tamed by the music industry. Famously, he once stormed out of an interview, something musicians simply didn't do at that time.
What I loved, I guess, is that Hank has a rebelliousness I don't have. I'm too English and too well brought up, probably.
Do you think you will acquire that with age?
I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever walk out of an interview. But I love his honesty about it.
If there's anything I could say, or you
Bam.
We love biographical plays and films, but if history tends to be about dead white men, who's pulling in the other direction? Screenwriter and playwright Abby Morgan has made a career and a reputation putting women at the heart of stories. I spoke to her about her latest film, Suffragette, and how she sees her place in the industry. Abby Morgan has created a memorable, some now classic, array of leading parts for actors on stage and screen. Her heroes and anti-heroes are often women. Here at the Donmar, we just staged a production of Morgan's breakthrough play, Splendour. First performed in the year 2000, it was set on the eve of a violent revolution and starred an all-female cast. When we met in the Donmar rehearsal space, I began by asking Abby how she felt when the words female or woman are put in front of her job title as writer.
When women turn to me and say, how does it feel to be a female writer? I think 4 or 5 years ago, I used to balk at that. I used to say, I know I'm not, I'm just a writer. But one of the things I really don't think I considered, probably until my late 30s, is my sex. I just did not engage with it. You know, and so I never went into a room and thought, I'm lesser in the room. I never, ever felt that. What's interesting as I hit my 40s and my mid-40s is that I'm more engaged with the inequalities, not just my own, because you have to look outside of, you know, that bubble you live in, but obviously the global inequality.
The young Abby was drawn to compelling female leads, like Rosalind Russell in His Girl Friday.
If I think about those films that have been female-led that I was drawn to, I can often relate them to actresses. So, you know, it is the Erin Brockoviches, you know, it's the Silkwoods, it's the Sophie's Choice, it's the Out of Africa. You know, it's often films that have been led by incredibly strong actresses like Meryl Streep, and it's Sissy Spacek, and it's Sally Field, Hildy in His Girl Friday, and Shirley MacLaine in The Apartment. Both of those were absolutely astonishing to me because they were powerful, feisty, humorous women. I felt they gave as good as men.
And there is a group of powerful, campaigning women at the centre of Abby's latest film.
You a suffragette, Mrs. Ellen? Yes, but I consider myself more of a soldier, Mrs. Watts. These women's testimonies make a difference. Maybe. But as Mrs. Pankhurst says, it's deeds, not words, that will get us the vote.
What drew you to that narrative?
I think it was being ignited by another woman's passion, which was Sarah Gavron, the director, which often happens for me. What I also realised was it was rare for me to be on a set where there wasn't just one leading woman, there was 4. You don't often get a mainstream movie led by women, you know, unless it's a comedy.
Or I guess a fantasy.
Or a fantasy, or a kind of romantic film.
Politics of a very different colour were at the heart of The Iron Lady, directed by Phillida Lloyd.
Margaret, with all due respect, when one has been to war...
With all due respect, sir, I have done battle every single day of my life, and many men have underestimated me before. This lot seem bound to do the same, but they will rue the day.
And when you went back to look at Thatcher, was that driven by a desire to re-examine or reinterpret, or was there something else going on? I remember Phillida saying to me that actually she wanted to make a film about Alzheimer's.
What really intrigued me was the very simple premise, which was what would happen if I passed Margaret Thatcher buying a pint of milk. And then when I learnt that she was experiencing dementia, it became even more intriguing to me, and I realised that actually it had the potential to be the kind of prism in which to look at the kind of power of loss and the loss of power, which is at the centre of the film. Phillida's also always described it as King Lear for girls. And I think, you know, if nothing else, whether you revere or revile her, she will be that great feminist stroke anti-feminist figure that we will always be fascinated with. I think what drew me to her was trying to find those big, almost Shakespearean characters who existed are great because they're another way of readdressing the balance of stories that have been told about men. You know, we've seen numerous films about Kennedy. You know, we've only ever seen one movie about Margaret Thatcher, and I hope there'll be more in other ways, you know.
May I introduce you?
In the critically acclaimed series The Hour, Abby also explored what it was to succeed in a male-dominated world. This time, the backdrop was a 1950s newsroom.
Christ, he's charming as well.
When you decided to write The Hour, was that what most motivated you, that Romola Garai's central character?
It was actually Romola's character, and it was the character of Lick Storm, which in itself is a complete kind of nod to those 1930s, 1940s, slightly kind of coded sort of, you know, empowered names of the women of that time. It was a time where there were huge sexual politics going on in the office, and yet there wasn't necessarily the language, or certainly not the political language to talk about it.
A new program, a new era, and they want me as producer.
They're humouring you. They don't want a woman. A woman is difficult, hysterical. And you can never really find one who will ever stay. A couple more years, you'll probably want a baby.
Oh, don't speak.
And even if they don't say that's your face, that's what they're thinking.
It's all about creating fully rounded women. I think what's really interesting about, say, working on a film like Shame, ultimately that's about a very sexual man, but it's also about a group of very sexual women as well. And that was fascinating to me. And actually, I guess really simply, I think women, there's a lot of shame around sex and admitting that you have sexual appetite and being empowered. And so that permeates the way we portray women on the screen.
You've gone backwards with this kind of new historicist energy to tell those stories. Going forwards, what do you really want to hear?
One of the things I would like to see is that we allow ourselves to take on some of those big themes, big worlds, big genres that we've normally reserved for men. And I guess, you know, the obvious is Bond. You know, it would be really great to see a female Bond. You know, I love James Bond, and it's probably sacrilege to say that, but when you are looking at the mix of Idris Elba and Damian Lewis, you know, do have a think about the woman that could play that part too.
In my final film tonight, I meet some theatre practitioners who are challenging received wisdom behind the casting of biographical characters. Shakespeare said that great acting holds a mirror up to nature. But do you need a white male actor to play one of America's founding fathers or an English king? We meet the people behind two shows who are challenging the idea of how the present can own its past.
I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing.
The hottest show on Broadway right now tells the story of a key figure in the early history of the USA, Alexander Hamilton.
Alexander Hamilton was our first Treasury Secretary. He came from this tiny island in the Caribbean, left when he was 15, joined the Revolution, and became George Washington's aide-de-camp.
So what year are we in?
So he arrived in America in like 1775, so just before the Revolution in 76.
The actors playing America's founding fathers look and sound like America today. And the soundtrack album is making its way to the top of the hip-hop charts.
We also wanted to eliminate any distance between then and now. So if we populated our show with people that looked like the world that we see today, then automatically we're bearing down, and that proximity gives us immediacy and doesn't create the gulf between something that happened and where we are.
I think Sing Show certainly changed me and my perception of what musical theatre can do as a form. Are you feeling excited and hopeful for what's next?
All of our hope is that whoever that kid is that came to see Rent, who made this, there's somebody out there who's going to hopefully see the show and say, my story matters, that it can sound like me, that it can look like me, that it can be about something that I care about. And I think that idea that all of our stories are relevant and have a place, even in a world as commercial as Broadway, that what it's saying fundamentally is this can be for everybody.
Take a shot, take a shot, I'm not throwing away my shot.
On this side of the Atlantic, how our history is being represented on stage is also being shaken up. In the last 3 years, director Phillida Lloyd has produced radical interpretations of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar and Henry IV, both starring Harriet Walter. It's a diverse, all-female company.
How I came by the crown. Oh, God forgive, and granted me with thee in true peace live.
My gracious liege, you won it, wore it, kept it, gave it me. Then plain and right must my possession be.
Following critical acclaim in London, Phillida and the cast are back rehearsing Henry IV before it transfers to New York. Why did Phillida choose to do an all-female production?
What we're trying to question is who is entitled to what we've come to think of as the crown jewels of our culture, the best of our dramatic literature. Who's got the keys to this kingdom?
Men get all the amazing stuff to talk about honor and justice and rivalry and peace and power, and women talk about domestic things, or they talk about their husbands or their kids or the dinner, or it's kind of romantic and domestic. It's a smaller world.
I would like to try another exercise of the actual changing of the space.
Rehearsals begin with movement sessions. In this radical interpretation of Shakespeare, the actors have to learn to inhabit space in a completely different way.
Space. The room should feel completely full.
Just start engaging with bits of yourself that you don't usually. Like, we talk a lot about sort of, the pelvis and the power there.
I've been going to the gym and I've been really enjoying getting muscled and swaggering and taking up space and not apologising and celebrating being strong.
You find yourself, well, I found myself, sat, legs open, doing the man spread and the tube, all of that.
How does telling the story in this way make it more accessible to audiences?
Don't do anything stupid.
One of the things that's most surprised me is how accessible it is, and to all sorts of people who've never done Shakespeare before, and how instantly the words fit the situation and chime with people.
I love talking to young men after the show, of them at first going, oh my God, I didn't know how you lot were going to play men, and then eventually going, I stopped thinking about it after 5 minutes, and you weren't playing men, you were playing the character. And we're like, that's exactly what we're doing. We're playing the essence of these characters.
A plague on it when things cannot be true one to another.
Peace, the fat guts. Lie down. Lay down here close to the ground and listen thou canst hear the tread of travellers.
Have you any levers to lift me
If these productions open up Shakespeare to new audiences, how might they have opened up the actors to new ways of thinking about their careers?
Spider-Man. Definitely, without a doubt. I always loved Spider-Man, but the idea that I can play him is amazing.
The challenge is on for everybody else in the world, because we know what we can do, because we are saying the best verse, some of the most spectacular writing ever written in the English language, and we are tackling it, and we have the muscles for it.
Thank you for watching. I'm going to leave you with a clip of the company of Henry IV singing a song from the production, Daddy's Gone.
I won't be the